Here are 4 non-finance books that changed my life and made me rich in terms of relationships, health, and overall happiness. Number 1, How to Win Friends and Influence People. One of the first self-development books I read was this book by Dale Carnegie. It's nearly 100 years old now, published in 1937. I read back on it recently, and now some of it feels like common sense, but at the time, it was all new. I didn't know most of the things. So if you haven't read it, this is a classic text which is a cornerstone for developing better social skills and being able to speak to anyone easily, or for even overall just being a nicer person. The biggest takeaway from this book is to be interested, not interesting. Simple things like smiling, asking people about themselves, discussing their interests. These are all things that make you likable, not in a scammy way, but in a sincere, genuine way. Some of the book's most impactful lessons include, firstly, become genuinely curious about other people and their lives. Secondly, remember that a person's name, their own name, is the sweetest sound they could hear, and bring it up in a conversation. Use it in a conversation. Number 3, frame conversations around the other person's interests, not just your own. And number 4, make those around you feel significant and appreciated. As Carnegie summarizes, you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. Really good book. Number 2, we then have A Break the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. I read this book when I was stuck with where I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to get more out of life. I knew I wanted to do more, achieve more. And I felt like I was putting the work in, but I wasn't seeing the results. And it was a close friend that recommended this to me. And it's played a huge role in me being able to break through to create a life that I never believed I was capable of, and that I wouldn't have been able to achieve with my previous mindset. It's a long book. There's a lot of detail in it. Some of it went over my head. But what I like is that it's not fluffy. It's based on neuroscience and quantum physics with spirituality mixed into it. Dispenza basically explains how we have a subconscious mind and a conscious mind. Our conscious mind is, think of it as the tip of the iceberg. So these are things that you're thinking whilst you're watching this video, the things that you're doing at the moment. That's all your conscious mind. The other 90% lies in the subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is a vast repository of our thoughts, of our feelings, our behaviors. And it's that subconscious that is the driving force behind so much of what we do, the way we think, and who we are fundamentally as a person. When you have a thought or a feeling, there's certain neurons in your brain that fires electrical signals. And the more often these neurons fire at the same time, the more likely they are to fire at the same time again in the future. So when you frequently think or feel something, you repeatedly activate the same neurons in your brain. And over time, you strengthen those connections, making those thoughts or those feelings a habit for yourself. So this book talks about how to rewire your brain and forge new connections. It talks about how to reinvent yourself using science. It's a bit of a dense book, but the overall takeaways for me have been life-changing. Whenever I read a good book, I have this sudden urge to want to do more, whether it's to do more in the business, to be more productive, to start a new project. And I have this new idea and I'm looking to learn more about it. I check out the classes on Skillshare, who are very kindly sponsoring today's video. Skillshare is the largest online community with thousands of classes from entrepreneurship, side hustles, design, copywriting, productivity, and so much more. With more downtime this summer, I'm delving into the creative aspects of the business that I rarely got to explore previously. So the colors, the branding, the designs, the graphics. So I'm currently taking a class on social media content creation in Canva, where I'm learning about color psychology and what the different colors means, the font selection and why to use certain fonts and not to use others. Really enjoying the class so far. Whenever I'm looking to learn a new skill or I'm struggling with something, I can almost guarantee that there will be a class on Skillshare that will help me master that skill. It's a great place to learn almost any topic without having to search through thousands of Google searches or YouTube videos. Highly recommend checking out Skillshare. And if you are one of the first 500 people to sign up using the link in the video description, you can binge watch as many classes as you want for free as part of the 30-day trial. Thank you so much, Skillshare, for sponsoring today's video. Number 3, The 3 Marriages. This book, it really had me rethinking my entire approach to life. This book talks about how we have 3 marriages, not just one. 1 to our significant other, 1 is our commitment to work, and 1 is our commitment to our inner selves. As someone who was constantly trying to balance work, love, and self, this book has been revolutionary. I used to think I had to compartmentalize these 3 areas of my life. I had to devote X hours to the job, Y hours to my partner, Z hours to myself. But the author made a really compelling case that this work-life balance mentality is just way too simplistic. Instead, he argues that these 3 marriages, to our work, to our loved ones, and to ourselves, are all interconnected and all interdependent. They're not separate domains, but they should be balanced instead. They should support one another and enhance one another. And that really hit home for me. I realized I was inadvertently pitting these aspects of my life against each other, constantly feeling like I had to sacrifice one to serve another. So the key takeaway that changed everything was understanding that true harmony comes when you stop trying to balance and you start focusing on integration. How can my work feed my relationship? How can my relationship nourish my sense of self? It's all about finding those synergies instead of seeing them as competing priorities. The real life stories and the author's writing made it really, really engaging and relatable. I found myself nodding along and thinking, yeah, that's me in so many instances. So if you're feeling like you're struggling with work-life balance, this is for you. It will give you a whole new approach for approaching work, love, and self in a way that brings more fulfillment, more harmony, and more joy to each of the areas. And number 4, surrounded by idiots. Have you ever found yourself thinking you're communicating really well, really effectively, you're explaining things very simply, you've laid it out from A to Z, but the other person just can't understand or get what you're trying to say? I mean, I'm sure we've all felt like this. This book goes into the 4 key personality types, and the key personality types are represented by color: red, yellow, green, and blue. And it talks about how understanding the communication style of each of these personalities can change your relationship with them. The key takeaway from this book is that the same words can have completely different meanings for different personality types. So what's clear and logical to one person may be completely confusing to another, simply because of their innate personality differences. So the author offers practical tips on how to identify the personality type of the person you're communicating with, and then adjust your wording and your tone and approach in a way that they could most connect with. Biggest takeaway is to learn to adapt to others' communication style rather than expecting them to adapt to yours. By being flexible and meeting people where they are, you can have more productive, more collaborative conversations and avoid the frustration of feeling like you're surrounded by idiots. So those are 4 non-finance books that I've loved. I'd love some recommendations from you. What are some non-finance books that you recommend that I and others should check out? And how have they helped you increase your wealth in the different areas of your life? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already.